Welcome everybody. My name is Casey Murphy and I'm here to quickly introduce our speakers today so we can get things kicked off. Today's presentation is on the language of compelling offers. If you've ever struggled to develop the perfect headline, the PPC ad that really gets the clicks, or the best call to action, you know how challenging it can be to figure out that magic formula. So today's speakers, Tim Ash and Mike Roberts, are going to give you some secret insights that will hopefully make that task just a little easier. Tim Ash is the CEO of Site Tuners. It's a firm that specializes in increasing website conversions, and he literally wrote the book on landing page optimization. He's a recognized expert in conversion rate optimization and the founder of Conversion Conference. Mike Roberts is a professional spy. He founded a company, SpyFu, which exposes the search marketing secret formula of your most successful competitors. He also recently launched Convertasaurus, upon which much of today's presentation is going to be built. If you love what you're learning, please tweet actively. The hashtag is WebOffers, and you can see Tim and Mike's handles on the screen. I also want to mention that we'll try to take as many questions as we can at the end, and I'll be monitoring the chat window throughout the presentation. So if you have any questions or feedback or any comments, please go ahead and put them in the chat window. We'll get to as many as we can at the end. Thanks so much, and take it away, Tim.
Thanks, Casey. Welcome, everybody. Thanks for listening in today. I just want to clarify, we will be doing the questions at the end. Enter them in the question window, not the chat window, and then we'll try to get to as many as we can. And again, tweet the crap out of it. Web offers is the hashtag, and hopefully you'll get a couple of good nuggets out of today's presentation. I'm just going to give you some quick background on Site Tuners and what we do. We help companies make their websites and landing pages more efficient. Now we can do that by helping redesign them and improve them from the perspective of the visitors, or by testing different versions of the content and creating landing page test plans. And for companies that want to learn how to do this in-house, we also have internal optimization team training and mentoring, kind of teaching you how to fish, if you will. We have a large clients, small clients, but I was forced by my Vice President of Business Development to put that slide up. Okay, but this is what I really want to talk to you about. I want to give you some insights into compelling offers. Now, Mike is going to concentrate in the second half on the language of compelling offers, but I want to just kind of examine offers a little more broadly and then give you some insights into other kinds of non-traditional languages, if you will, that come into play. So, what is an offer exactly? Well, it's when you think, hey, you get this the Ronco chamois for only $19.99, and we think of the offer primarily as the price. But in fact, the offer is much more than just price alone. In my book, I talk about many different components of an offer. Of course, there's the actual primary offer, whatever your value proposition is, but it often includes other things like the total solution surrounding the offer. What do I mean by that? Well, it might be customer service, it might be free shipping, it might be the ecosystem of other companies that are already kind of supporting you and your products or services. Of course, headlines and sales copy and the visuals of the offer page make a huge impression. And the actual offer itself, the call to action. What's your text? What's your graphical format? We're definitely going to touch on all of that today. A lot of times, an unseen component of the offer is repetition. In other words, if you see it the first time, it may not register at all. You see it the second time, you might notice it but not care, and it's only after so many viewings or exposures to the offer or the product that you actually will be moved to act. So it's not often a one-and-done situation. Either do it or you don't. And that's where powerful technologies like ad retargeting come in. If someone's been to your site, follow them around with ads, kind of stalk them wherever they go on the internet and expose them to your offer more frequently. Now, of course, availability and scarcity are well-studied tactics. We're not going to cover that on this webinar, but limited time only, or only 3 seats left at this price. We're all familiar with that. And price. If you're in a very competitive commodity type situation, then you're often forced to compete on price. But you can always try to differentiate yourself with other aspects of what you do. All right, well, we're talking here today about the language of offers, but I want to talk about several different kinds of languages other than just text, which is what we're going to, Mike's going to focus in on. I want to focus on clarity, context, someone's affinity for what you're doing, and the visual aspects of it. All of those are types of languages that can be more or less compelling or effective if you do them wrong or do them properly. So let's touch on each of these in turn. The first one I want to talk about is the notion of clarity. Now, if I say to you, which is the big guy? Hopefully none of you are having a problem figuring it out. I mean, I used extreme contrast here, the tallest living man in the world and the shortest living man in the world actually meeting in person. And you're probably thinking, well, that's obvious. He's the big guy. The big guy's the big guy. It's, I'm not stupid. And that's how our minds work. One of the things we look for is a clear set of choices. We don't want to work too hard. We don't want to tire our brain, if you will. And yet, often, when we're presenting offers to people, we don't give them those clear set of choices. Here's a perfect example. This is an e-commerce catalog. The names have been stricken to protect the guilty, but which of these pens do you want to buy? You're here to buy pens. Well, how are you going to make your decision? Are you faced with a clear set of choices? Well, what would I base it on? They're skinny, tiny pictures of pens, and I have to really squint to even see what the differences are. Well, is it that, for example, in part of this, the second one here in the upper left, there's only one pen, and maybe if I'm go over here to the second row, I'm buying several pens at a time? Well, no, that's not it. They're just showing you different colors. But again, you're forced to think, and you're forced to kind of dig down and try to understand the distinctions. They're not clear choices. One of our pen clients, we recommended that they make giant enlargements of the front end of the pen and the back end, the tip of the pen, so that you can see how the mechanism works, how fat it is, how grippy it is, all of those aspects. And that's much more helpful than having a bunch of teeny tiny little pictures that pretty much all look the same. So this isn't giving me a clear set of choices at all. So the way that you want to think about clear choice is that we don't like to think. There's a great book by my buddy Steve Krug, who's keynoted the conversion conference. If you don't have it, it's probably the best book out there on basic web design and usability. And the title of it is very apt. The title is Don't Make Me Think. And he's not kidding. Actually using our kind of conscious mind and thinking through things burns a lot of calories, and it tires out the mind. And we don't like to think. So here's some ways to kind of get around that. If you have something complicated that you need to walk people through, do it with little wizards, with a set of 2, 3 simple questions instead of having them figure out all of the complexity of what you offer. Don't overwhelm them with detail, and remove similar choices from the mix. So a lot of times you think, well, I can drop everything from China, or I can sell the whole catalog of whatever it is that I sell, and that's too overwhelming. Here's the newsflash, folks. You can't be Amazon. You can't be Walmart. They already have those areas staked out. They sell everything, and that's what you know them for. You need to probably, if you don't have a super strong brand, or even if you do, probably focus down on a few key things. And if it's your specialty to know about something, then you should be able to present clear choices to me, not things that are almost the same that I have to struggle with and tease out the differences from. So that's the language of clarity. Next, I want to talk about context. And I call this using a big anchor. Now, I don't literally mean this big anchor, but it turns out that just like baby ducks who imprint on the first living creature they see as their mother after they're born, people will also be influenced by the context and what surrounds what they're examining. And a lot of times this can be used to your advantage, or it could be a lost opportunity. Here's an example from one of our clients, a very large company in the online space, and here's their small business web hosting plans. Now, if you look at this, you'll probably read it like most people do from left to right. So there's the basic plan for $250, advanced for $4, and premier for $6. Okay? Now, most of you, by the time you get to the $6 mark, will go, wow, that's kind of expensive, because you're calibrated to the $250 number already. And so it serves as the context and the order in which you experienced them will influence your thinking about whether that price is expensive or not. When you think about it, on the face of it, $6 a month for web hosting or for pretty much anything else, that's, chicken feed. It even says it works for heavily trafficked sites and unlimited disk space and data transfer. It's wonderful stuff. 1,000 email addresses. But because you've seen that 250, you're thinking, wow, that better be 2.5 times as good as the basic plan, whatever that is. And so it's showing it to you in the wrong order. Think about it when you go to a restaurant, a fancy restaurant. You're probably on the wine list, see a $500 bottle of wine at the top. That's usually how it goes. And you go, well, I'd have to be kind of a sucker to pay $500. And you're probably right, you would be. So you go down to the next wine on the list, and then you see, say, the Rodney Strong for $75, and you go, well, that's much more reasonable. If I order that, my friends that I'm out with aren't going to think that I'm a cheapskate, basically that's a good choice. Never mind that it probably costs you $25 at Costco to buy the same bottle, but you've been calibrated by the $500 context. And that's why you're willing to pay the $75 for the next one down. And the same thing if you go buy a men's suit, for example. They'll sell you the $1,000 suit first. They're not going to sell you the cufflinks and the shirt and the belt, because it's kind of tough to say, hey, buy the $25 cufflinks and here's a $1,000 suit to go with that. So always, always, always bracket things and prime people with larger amounts. Here's an example of our Attention Wizard tool that we use for, sorry, I'm hearing some kind of clicking. If we can mute, please, that'd be great. Here's an example of our Attention Wizard software, which you can upload an image and it'll predict where someone's going to look during the first few seconds on the landing page. So what we have is 3 different plans. The first plan is the gold plan. It's $197. The next one's $97, and the last one is the bronze plan for $27. Well, once you've seen that $197, it seems like a veritable bargain, whatever the bronze is, because it's about 1/7 of the price. And we actually expect most people to go for that basic bronze, if you will. But again, it's the context that matters. So bracketing, even irrationally sometimes, can be powerful. For example, there have been studies that show if I ask you the last 2 digits of your Social Security number, so it could say go from 99 to 01, or 00 in fact, and then ask you to value a particular item or service, turns out that people that are in the 90s for those last 2 digits are willing to pay or value this hypothetical product or service 30 to 40% higher than the ones that were primed by their low digits in their Social Security number. Now, does that make sense? No, it's completely irrational. And that's really the point, is that you can take advantage of that. So let's talk about the takeaways here for context. We anchor on the first thing we see, so it's very important to take advantage of that. Put your high-end items first, and not in the expectation that you're going to move a lot of them or people are going to take them, but often it's to set the context and the bracketing for the one you really want them to buy. And then also, like I said, even if there are irrational anchors, put them out there in the lobby. I'm sure you've all seen those infomercials on TV. And the infomercials talk about, well, this is a $200 value. Well, what is it? Well, it's just a wipe cloth for your car, or a little chamois, right? Normally a $200 value, but today it's only $50. But even though we think we're smart enough and rational enough not to believe that arbitrary $200 value they threw out, we're not. It turns out we are swayed by it, and it makes us increase our kind of perceived value for the product. All right, but there's still other languages. I want to kind of switch gears and talk about the language of our cultural tribes. Now, all of us, it turns out, you could view us as overlays of different beliefs and tribes and affiliations. If I said, are you a Ravens fan or are you a San Francisco 49ers fan, many of you will probably have a pretty strong opinion. If I say, well, I drive a Bentley, and you say, well, I drive a Toyota Prius, then you're definitely coming from different cultural tribes with different values. Now, some of these tribes are chosen and voluntary. Others are circumstances in your life. You might be in the tribe of people that are orphans, for example, or people that have red hair, and those aren't voluntary tribes. And sometimes they're positive and negative associations, but if you really think of yourself, all of the cultural tribes you belong to, many of the chosen ones, you've gravitated towards because of your own affinities and predispositions and life experiences, and you trust more the people in your tribes. And that can come across in the visual language that you use to describe what you do. For example, this is the website for the oatmeal, and it's kind of this tongue-in-cheek, cute little ebooks and funny drawings and New Yorker type cartoons, but it's for the kind of brainiac crowd, I would say, for the I'm smart but not so smart that I can't laugh at myself, people who listen to National Public Radio. And I'm generalizing, of course, but the point is, when you come to this website and you see their kind of whimsical design and the handwritten fonts and the cute graphics, that for some people has a very strong affinity, and you go, oh, that's really funny, I'm going to get that How to Tell If Your Cat is Plotting to Kill You book, and I'm part of this cultural tribe. But that's very different than, well, let's say Gears of War. Let's say you came to a website like this, Gears of War Judgment, coming in 2013. I mean, this is aimed at people that want to, pardon me, blow crap up, 15-year-old boys most likely, or some of us kind of delayed adolescent males like me. But this dark, gothic, post-apocalyptic dystopia that they're showing you and selling you here on the screen is very different, I'm sure you'll agree, in editorial tone than the kind of fun, whimsical, cerebral approach of the oatmeal. And the key point of this is that we'll instantly, based on visual tone and the graphics and the language used and the editorial tone, figure out if this is appropriate for us or resonates for us. So the thing you have to take away about the language of cultural tribes and context is that people are tribal, and a lot of those tribes are self-selected, but the most important thing is we care and value the opinions of people like us. I'm sure when you were a teenager, you didn't really care too much about the opinions of your parents, but you probably cared a lot about the opinions and behavior of your peers. That's how we kind of learn our way through the world, and maybe you were the geek, or maybe you were the jock, or maybe you were the, the outsider and the weirdo. And I mean, high school is a pretty polarizing kind of place, and in order to fit in, you kind of adopted a tribe. So in order to affect people, to compel them, to persuade them, you need to look the part. And your editorial tone and writing style needs to support that. And this is also a very, very key point. You have to not worry about alienating outsiders. If you're speaking to a very specific audience, make sure you're on target for them and you don't dumb everything down with generic marketing happy talk and kind of lose the power of your message. All right, let's talk next about visuals. I could spend probably a day talking about this, but I'm just going to focus on a few things. And most of your brain is involved in visual processing of one type. So your offer is often supported by some kind of visuals. Here's an example of a video spokesperson. I'm not going to play the video, but a little person walks out into your visual field, says a few things, and goes away. Often that can increase conversion. We can't help but pay attention to motion in our visual field and people talking to us. And our mind doesn't know that that's in the computer screen or in the monitor. We just know that a little person came out and is talking about us. But how you do that is very important. Sometimes you don't want that kind of intrusive approach. So for example, here on the Conversion Conference website, there's a 2-minute overview near the lower left, and it's just indicated by one of those Facebook-style, postage stamp size video players. And then when it starts playing, then you kind of get the full presentation in a light box popover. It kind of overlays on top of the screen. You get it in nice high resolution. So how you present videos and visuals is very important as well, because you don't want to necessarily embed a viewer in your page, and takes up a lot of room, makes it hard to design around. You don't necessarily want to autoplay it. All of these are hard kind of things to balance out, and you should be aware of them. The visual language. Sometimes visual language can be used inappropriately. Here's an example. Camtasia is actually great software for putting together web videos. And this Camtasia Studio, if you want a video introduction to it, where are you going to click on this page? Well, they have these really compelling graphics with play buttons on the near the right-hand side. But ironically, it's this gray innocuous button in the middle, overview video, that's somehow supposed to tell you that there's a video there. So to me, that's the wrong kind of cue. Like on the Conversion Conference site, you saw a video thumbnail to indicate a video. A gray button doesn't normally indicate video. So the visual emphasis of video content, how it's presented, whether it autoplays, whether it overlays, how you trigger it, all of those things are really, really important details. Again, if you have questions about this, please start entering them in the question window, and we will get to them. And remember to tweet. You can see the hashtags at the bottom of the page. But even stills, not just video, even stills are very, very powerful. For example, if you're looking at this page, what's the call to action? What are you looking at first? Well, you're probably looking at happy smiling dude at the top of the page. And then you see the head of second semi-smiling dude on the left-hand side. And they're looking at something, but that something is off of the frame, so you can't follow what they're thinking about. It looks like it's probably a computer screen. Then the next thing you'll probably look at is the guy on the right with the tie. And all this time you're looking at human faces and they're distracting you, and there's no notion of a call to action here. That's just gratuitous graphics, and it's clearly just stock photography, or what a friend of mine calls business porn, just generic stuff that you can buy on iStock Photo for $1. Not compelling and not supporting the call to action. Now, I'm going to show you our own website, and I like to, as they say in the ad business, think that we eat our own dog food or apply our own principles. If you look in the middle of this page in the white part, there's one call to action. It's an orange button. In order to anchor your attention to it, we have an image, a strong visual graphic of that sports car right above it. So your eye naturally goes to this photorealistic image, and then the button just below it and drops down to that. Likewise, if there's no call to action in the body of the page, in the header of our page, we have the kind of universal put us to work orange button, and what draws attention to that is, well, unfortunately, my bald, ugly head. Now, that's quite intentional, though. It's not just there for branding purposes. It's there to draw your eye to a specific call to action. So don't use pictures unless they're directly supporting the call to action, and be very careful about pictures of people in particular. All right, so the things you need to kind of understand about the visual system and the language of visuals is that it's very powerful, it's automatic, it's very quick, and anything that is strong will draw attention. So be careful about use of animation or motion or sliders or rotating banners, and use pictures of people very carefully, only to support calls to action. So a couple of quick tips, and then we're going to move on to Mike's part of the presentation. I just want to give you 3 quick ways to be more compelling, and these have to do with language and with presentation of text on the page. So I just want you to think about these in the back of your mind in addition to the stuff that Mike's going to talk about. The first is experiment with format of your call to action, exactly how the shape of your button, how three-dimensional it is, the color, any visual embellishments, the size of it, very small to very large, can radically change the experience of it and the take rate on your offers. Now, what goes on the button, again, Mike will talk about that, but definitely experiment with the format of your calls to action and buttons. The same goes with fonts. There's a lot of great research. I'm going to just give you the cliff notes. Use even width or sans serif fonts. Avoid all capitals that make it hard to pull out the letter shapes. And also minimize use of reverse color text, of dark on light, or rather light on dark. So that there's study after study after study that if you do avoid doing those three things, or using serif fonts, all caps, and reverse color, your readability goes way up. And in addition to the actual headlines and call to action buttons, just if you in general, if you're writing for the web, some tips for you. Use what's called inverted pyramid or newspaper style. Put the important stuff in the first lines. Don't be afraid to not use proper English. Have sentence fragments, have bullet points. Keep it short. That increases retention and conversion. And get rid of, like I said earlier, the marketees or the marketing happy talk. And this takes a lot of discipline. Don't use any adjectives. Provide only objective information you have support for. And focus on the needs of your audience instead of talking about what's wonderful about your company. All right, well, at this point, I'm going to throw it over to Mike. He's going to blow your mind with their amazing firsthand research. So, Mike, please take it away.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim. I'm going to talk to you today about the language of conversion and, in essence, using other people's tests to crowdsource the perfect copy. But first, a little background. My company is called SpyFu, and basically you can go to SpyFu.com and type in any domain name and see every keyword that they've ever bought on Google, every ad variation that they've ever run, which is critical to today's discussion, and every organic ranking that they've had. I actually invented the whole space. There's actually a few different companies that you can download competitors' keywords now, but prior to 2006, you had to essentially guess and check, and so I made that possible, and my company is based on that. So today I'm going to tell you a story. At SpyFu, I'm kind of in charge of directing research. We do a lot of pure research here to drive our products forward. And I spend a lot of time like writing algorithms and trying to figure out ways to really solve people's problems. And one of the problems that I wanted to solve was, how can we help you to actually improve your ad copy? The first thing that we wanted to do is just to at least figure out which ads of yours are doing worse than your competitors. Our initial plan was to be pretty pragmatic about it. We were just going to go out and scour the internet and find what we could about rules about writing AdWords ad copy, right? And I don't think we really wanted to limit ourselves purely to AdWords. We were like, well, let's find out what we can find out about conversion copy anyway, calls to action, what are the best practices. And we figured we'd be able to get a whole bunch of those things and sort of make some expert rules and kind of apply those to people's ads. We're able to come up with some general rules, which are, have a call to action, shorter is better, and be very, very specific. But there's not very many of these rules. If we actually wanted to apply this sort of and make it really useful for our customers, these 50 or so rules that we were able to come up with just weren't going to, I don't know, they wouldn't be very dynamic, and we wouldn't be able to truly apply them very well to somebody's sort of very specialized ad copy. Furthermore, I don't know that we really know that they're true, because I know that things change over time. What's a good way to say free, I've actually seen go from being $0 being better than free to worse than free. And so depending on when these things were written and what they were based on, I don't really think we know. So I wanted to figure out if there's a way to prove or disprove these specific claims, and that's sort of what I set out to do. And so I thought, what if we did it for like all domains, every advertiser, every ad that's ever been run, right? What if we looked at 1 billion ads and tried to figure out, what is a good ad? In this way, we can actually control for any individual advertiser's bidding strategy and their discipline, and in essence, get to the heart of it, because that's sort of the problem that we have with determining an individual advertiser versus another individual advertiser, is that it may look like to us that they're outperforming their competitor, but they may just be spending a ridiculous amount of money, losing money, in fact. And so that's like the weakness of that system. But if we look at all ads across the entire Google ecosystem, then we can find truth. And so what we wanted to do is figure out which phrases good ads have in common, and in that way we'd be able to prove or disprove those rules. So I'm like, build this system, and I'm thinking, oh, seriously, what do I actually know? What is something that I truly, in my heart of hearts, because, okay, supposedly using free shipping is good, but is it? Do I know that? What do I actually know to ask this thing so that I can prove that it's right? Okay, so audience participation. You can chime in here, Tim and Casey, if you guys want to be the vocal audience. Which is better, free shipping or free overnight shipping?
Well, I like the immediacy of overnight, so that to me sounds stronger.
I would say the same, overnight.
Indeed, it is free overnight shipping. And that's not like just a small amount of information, right? We're actually analyzing 5.3 million unique matching ads from 54,000 advertisers. And so when we say these things, it's not like we're looking at every ad. Those are unique ads, and those are unique advertisers. So 54,000 different advertisers used that phrase, those phrases, and across 5.3 million ads, and those ads with free overnight shipping outperformed the other ads. Let's try another one. Inexpensive versus value priced.
I'm going to say inexpensive. Value priced almost feels cheap to me, quality-wise.
Okay. So it's actually value priced, and I thought value priced was going to be the. I felt like value price seems good, like low cost. I'm not sure. Cheap was like, well, maybe cheap is like a really maybe that's like cheap tickets sort of. It's too pejorative. Anyway, so based on 32,000 unique ads from 1.9 thousand advertisers. How about 30-day free trial versus 30-day money-back guarantee?
Well, if it's a trial,
I'm going to go guarantee.
I'm going to go free trial, because if it's a trial, I don't really care about money back. It's the trial anyway.
Gotcha. So it is 30-day free trial, and that's 81,000 unique ads, 1.4 thousand, 1,400 advertisers. Now, for the rest of these, I'm not going to like say how many ads there are and advertisers.
Yeah, just go right through them. That's fine.
Yeah, because ultimately, just trust that we're mining billions of ads, and that we're certain of our stuff. Now, these ones are pretty nuanced. These are tough, actually, I thought. But there's also a lot of easy ways, obvious, very obvious ones. You got great versus greatest. Greatest is the winner. Fine versus finest. Finest is the winner. You versus us. Well, yeah. Talk about you, not us. Who cares about, us? And then death lawyer versus kitten, and kitten wins every time.
A quick question, Mike. Somebody's asking, what does it mean that one ad won? Is it the number of times used? So can you kind of clarify what you mean by one so everyone understands?
Sure. It's algorithmic, but like basically the idea is, what was its coverage versus other ads, and so you can sort of control basically based on how often Google is showing it. We know quite a bit about what Google's. So the idea is it gets a higher click-through rate. In essence, what we did is we reverse engineered quality score, and quality score, Google is greedy, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. They optimize their quality score is highly tied to effective CPM. So they put the ads that make them the most money at the top, basically.
So it's basically, the quality score also goes into the frequency with which your ad is seen and how much you're paying for it. So basically, if Google gives it a higher quality score, they think it's more effective at pulling people through to your site, and they want to reward that.
What we were able to do really is reverse engineer what click-through rate should be and so so we're saying if you put kitten in your ad versus death lawyer in your ad, the kitten ad will get a higher click-through rate. Just,
Okay.
It's not a real apples to apples comparison, that one, but it just happens to be kind of on my screen right now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Let's keep going.
Cool. Okay, so we know that free overnight shipping is better than free shipping, but the real value in Convertasaurus is, Convertasaurus, yeah. The real value in Convertasaurus is the ability to not just tell us what the obvious answers are, or the relatively obvious answers are, but find sort of the nuance, the detail, like, because maybe it's not a realistic thing for you to offer free overnight shipping, or, I mean, clearly these aren't the same offer, right? So free overnight shipping is a better value to me. I'm more likely to click on it by virtue of the fact that it's better, not necessarily because it's because the words are better. Okay. So what I wanted to do now is show like the nuance of different offers. So you got free shipping versus free same-day shipping versus free next-day shipping. So these are still pretty easy. I mean, you could sort of order these based on, what's better. But it's this one's going to also just prove what we feel should be the case, right? So free same-day shipping does in fact beat free next-day shipping, which beats free shipping. Okay. But now, what happens when we talk about free shipping and free returns? Well, that's a tougher one for me to quantify. I mean, is it better to have free same-day shipping or free shipping and returns? Well, it turns out free shipping and free returns beats free same-day shipping, but not free shipping ampersand free returns and not free shipping and returns. And these margins aren't like blowouts, right? These are relatively small margins in terms of the quality of these phrases, but Convertasaurus offers you that sort of like minor nuanced difference. So let's look at some more. I mean, actually, let's look at the winners bracket. So we have free shipping and free returns, free same-day shipping. Those are our two winners, but free overnight shipping still beats both of them. So can anything actually beat free overnight shipping? Well, it turns out 6 words, 1 comma, in stock, ready to ship today. So you don't have to make a promise of anything free. All you're saying is it's actually here, and I'm going to ship it to you today. That beats free overnight shipping. But don't act too excited about all this free shipping. It turns out that if you put an exclamation point at the end of these things, each and every one of these cases loses to the exclamation point loses to just the play it cool, no exclamation points, use a period or whatever. It turns out that that's not just shipping. That applies in a lot of cases.
So basically, people have their bullshit filters up on high, and they're wary of hype.
Absolutely, yeah. Hype does not work. But there's actually a counter case. So in all of these cases, free versus free exclamation point, special offer exclamation point, easy here, now open, all of these things lose to their exclamation point counterparts. The exception is with urgency. Act now, don't delay, limited time, can't wait, don't miss out. All of those things, the exclamation points win. And those are all time-based, right? And so that's when you want to use the exclamation points. So I've talked a lot about free, but it turns out that free isn't actually even as good as complimentary and no cost. So it gives you a lot of options. You can just go and start messing around with, well, should I be, let's see, should I be offering complimentary shipping rather than free shipping? Well, that's not bad. Or no cost shipping, that's not bad. You should try it. And by the way, this isn't even just about AdWords. This applies to pretty much everything. Obviously, free shipping isn't an offer that's exclusive to AdWords. This is something that you would put on your website, you would put in your email, anywhere, social media. It's not limited to the internet. You could, have this in your direct mail. This is just, I believe, what we've managed to capture is the language of conversion, the language of the call to action. The best news is that you don't even have to remember anything that I've said because we put it all on a website. And actually, if you're familiar with the fact that Convertasaurus exists, we actually recently made it into very mobile friendly. I actually love using it on my I don't have an iPhone. I use an Android, but this is great because you're in a meeting, right? And you're going over like, well, what should we put in this headline? And you can just be, like bust out your phone, figure it out right there. And of course, it's no cost. It's complimentary. It's free. It's gratis. People have been using it.
Yeah, Ryan was saying nice sales pitch, but hey, Ryan, this is absolutely no cost, no obligation, free. Convertasaurus is a service that SpyFu puts out, and you can go use it with no limitations. I just want to make that clear to everyone. Mike, you're not selling anything here, so just
no.
Improving the knowledge of us marketers.
That's right. I mean, at some point we may offer a premium model, but right now but there will always be a pretty strong portion of Convertasaurus that's free, and we're basically just, it's a research project that we built into a website, and we're trying to see really how people want to use it, and so as long as and we're building an audience for it, and people have been using it. Okay, so here's Jeremy Shoemoney, actually wrote on his blog how he actually ran an experiment. A couple weeks ago, I talked about how beta access to SpyFu's how I got beta access to SpyFu's tool, and it showed me that the word demo beat free demo and contact us. So after split testing it, it was indeed right on the money with 30% more clicks, and that's on his blog. This is Hamid Shojai of Axosoft, and he said, this is an email to me. By the way, I can tell you we are already changing the wording on our site because of this. We are changing free trial to get started free on our website. Sometimes it's hard for us to test, A/B test small variations like that because they either appear in too many places on our site or the difference is not enough to show meaningful results unless we keep a test running for months, which is not very practical. So people have had success with just making these minor variations and are actually able to report them. So Tim told me I should put this together, put a slide together for us. Normally I just do a shout out if we're going to do an offer, but in this case, we were talking about it last night, and Tim's like, you'll get a better conversion rate
if you actually have a call to action.
Yeah. A slide. So limited time, don't miss out, right? And this will just get you 50% off your first month of SpyFu. It's not really the subject of my presentation. You can always go to convertasaurus.com and it's free. So I understand, Tim, that you have some offers that you're going to give also.
That's right, and we're going to move into Q&A here. So I'm just going to tell you about a couple of things that we're doing as well. And one of the things I want to talk to you about is our express reviews. If you really want a very frank, no holds barred look at your landing page or website, I encourage you to look at our express reviews. They're interactive. We record them via GoToMeeting, so you have the video and get all your questions answered. Hopefully this is an incentive. If you mention Web Offers webinar after ordering by next Friday, I'll conduct the first 3 myself, and usually these go pretty quickly, so just go on our website and buy it, and then just mention Web Offers webinar. Also want to do a quick shout out for the Conversion Conference. If you haven't been to one of these, this is our 4th year now. We have San Francisco coming up in April, Chicago in June, Boston, Berlin, London. Use the web offers hashtag when you register, not hashtag, promo code, and you'll get $200 off of the April conversion conference in San Francisco. If you really want to learn and drink from the fire hose, we pride ourselves on having the best speakers and presenters that are there primarily just to share their knowledge. That's kind of the cornerstone of it. So we're going to jump into Q&A, and Casey's going to give us some questions. And I know we had some questions about whether this will all be available. The recording and the slides will be available. We're going to send everybody a follow-up email with the information.
Hey, Tim, one more thing about that offer. I know that it was a link that you'd have to memorize. But if you guys just, if anyone wants the SpyFu offer, you can go on our live chat and just talk to Danielle. She knows that it's there, and just say you're on the webinar, and you get the same thing.
And we'll also put that in the email when post-webinar email.
Cool.
Yeah, you all will get an email from Tim probably in just a few hours, and we'll include Mike's link directly from that email, so you can just click right through it. So no worries. Perfect. Or you can go chat with Danielle. She's really sweet, and you're going to love talking to her. So either way, you prefer. So real quick, somebody was looking for your Convertasaurus on iPhone in the App Store. Is it a mobile site or is it an app?
It's a mobile site, so you can just go to it on your from your browser.
Okay, great. Just wanted to clarify that. Okay, landing page optimization for websites. Can you do those? I mean, is there a value to landing page optimization for a free site, like a gift registry? It's one of our questions.
Well, yeah, it depends. Your goal may not be to sell something. It might be to get more people to open up a gift registry account and put their stuff on it. So whatever business process you're trying to improve, that's always a candidate for landing page optimization.
For both of you, you might have a different take on this. This question came through when Mike was presenting, but what do you guys think about this? Do superlatives generally work better?
Well, I think we saw both sides of it. You want to be clear, but you don't want to have hype. So it looks like with time-based offers, superlatives do work better, but most of the rest of the time we have our bullshit filter set on high.
Yeah, it's I don't know if they're referring to great versus greatest and that type of thing. I think that brevity and you know, basically the rules that I've been able to figure out is that you want to be as concise as possible and as specific as possible. And so if what you're saying is true, you are the best or the world's first or whatever. If that's true and a compelling differentiator, then use it. If it's just there because you want to fill in space or you feel like you should have something, an adjective there, leave it out.
Yeah, I think in general you should leave adjectives out and be as factual and specific as you can, so I'm in complete agreement with you, Mike. It just saves us the cognitive load of filtering out those words as we read. If you say 30,000 happy users of Convertasaurus, that's just as powerful as saying the biggest keyword research conversion tool in the world. You know, just let the facts speak for themselves.
I'm glad you really
and
said
unnecessary hype, it goes to that whole exclamation point thing. You don't need it, and it kind of like may do some damage.
So Tim, that was a really perfect segue because we actually had a question come in about wanting you to elaborate on not using adjectives. Because what about a site like a fashion site for girls' clothes? How are you going to get people excited about clothing items without using adjectives?
Well, it's a certain kind of discipline. Remember, the point isn't to get them excited. The question is whether you can get them excited. Remember, people have very short attention spans on the web. So if they're going to read anything, and by the way, most of the research says they don't. They look at pictures and look for stuff to click on. But if they are going to read and invest that time, every word counts. So it's your job to be an editor and to ruthlessly cut the text back, and that includes any unsubstantiated subjective claims.
Now, another question that came up, this one through during Tim's session, Experts always seem to argue that the serif fonts are easier to read. What's your take on that? Because you did talk about that in terms of clearer calls to action.
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's the context. So I think I may have answered this one already, but when you're talking about print with a really high resolution, most printed books are, for example, 2400 dots per inch. Most web monitors are 75 to 300, so much lower resolution. The fine detail of the serif fonts, which is actually helpful in high resolution, becomes a problem. So using even width or even stroke fonts like you're seeing on the screen right now is much more readable at low resolution.
Do you think any of these principles that both of you are talking about, either the research from Convertasaurus and just some of these principles that you've been addressing, Tim, are applicable to an international audience? How would they need to be? What are the nuances there?
Can't really say. We work with clients all over the world. There are a lot of different sensibilities as to what constitutes hype or what constitutes a good visual presentation. Some of the sites I see from Japan or the Far East to me look like this blinking casino that I just stepped into, but apparently culturally that's okay. In other countries like Germany, they're much more staid and laid back and more text-heavy sites. So there are different cultural norms with regard to how promotional you can be, I think, as well as how obnoxious.
Yeah, that's a really good point. I would not. Convertasaurus is based on U.S. Data and U.S. sensibilities, and I would love to say that it applies evenly to all English language sites, but or all English language everything. But I have been burned by that. I don't necessarily think that that's the case. Certainly, you'd want to, at the very least. I mean, I think you could trust some amount of it and apply it across cultural boundaries, but you definitely wouldn't want to do it blindly. I mean, in all cases, when writing copy, even for like something like the UK or Canada or Australia, you should have somebody that lives in that culture like review your copy.
Yeah, and I would add to that you really want to have native language speakers write your stuff. Don't just translate what you have. Make sure it's culturally appropriate and essentially written from scratch, because editorial tone and length and everything else may have to change too.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any good resource recommendations, Tim, for people who are looking for copywriting, call to action phrases, that sort of thing?
There are companies that I met. There's a company I mentioned in my book, Oban Multilingual, that specializes in localization and for websites specifically. Offhand, I don't know of any others that I would recommend.
The question wasn't even specific to the international sites, but just in general, if somebody's looking for, to really tap into some more like insights about writing good and powerful calls to action, that sort of thing.
Well, I'd say Brian Clark's blog, copyblogger.com, is fantastic. He's been doing this for so many years and just has great insights. Jeff Sexton, who's also spoken at Conversion Conference, is another guy who's very knowledgeable about copywriting and the psychology of motivation. So I would look to those folks, Brian Clark and Jeff Sexton.
Have either of you seen whether capitalization in offers makes a difference? If you've got download now, just 2 words, and they're both capitalized versus maybe just capitalizing download and not now?
My understanding is that that you want to use title case, but it depends on the context, I suppose. At least in AdWords, title casing seems to be, seems to be at least best practice. I feel like I have studied that and confirmed it, but I can't say 100% certainty.
Okay. And let's see. How another question, I think, just on the copy issue, Terrell wants to know, for an extremely specialized site where your clients are really looking for information, is there a motivation factor you think that people would be more willing to read copy then for other types of sites where maybe pictures are more powerful?
Well, the question isn't whether to have supporting information, it's whether to bombard somebody up front with it. So there should be very short, hard-hitting copy, and then it should say more details, or download spec sheet, or download our white paper. You can put as much as you want on the internet and into downloadable files, but just don't assume everybody wants to read it. Most people don't. Or they may not want to do it on your website, so give them an asset that you can either email or download.
All right, well, we're 2 minutes over the hour, so I think it's a good time to wrap up. We've hit most of the questions. I want to thank everybody for being here, and I'll pass it over to Tim and Mike to sign off.
Well, thanks, Casey, for fielding those questions. I hope you guys got as much out of it as I did. And Mike, it opened my eyes to a few things. Thanks for co-hosting. Thanks, everyone. We hope to see you on an upcoming Site Tuners webinar.